Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. I just don't know. I really don't know. After The Last Jedi and Solo, are there any more people out there who are still optimistic that this series is gonna be good? The divide between the positive and negative opinions on The Last Jedi have caused tons of vitriol between two sides. The hate is so strong, it remains for at least 5 to 6 months after the film was released. It's getting calmer now because people move on to other things like anime, God bless these poor souls. Regardless of your opinions on The Last Jedi, you need to agree with one thing. The backlash is real. It's undeniable, and it's coming from people who are fans of the series and people who want to see the series succeeds. And honestly, why would people lie about The Last Jedi being garbage? To win the American presidential election?
Star Wars The Last Jedi negative buzz amplified by Russian trolls, study finds.
Yes. That's right, a lot of those negative buzz are thanks to Russian trolls. Ugh, God, I hope my new patrons are not Russian bots. Huge thanks to Frosty Shock, the Husky Lord, Abdurrahman Jamal, and Steven for the pledges. You guys are fantastic. This is an article from The Hollywood Reporter. If you Google The Last Jedi right now at around 2 or 3 October 2018, you might see similarly themed news articles popping at the very top of the search list. All of these news articles are covering the same study and spreading the news that nearly half of The Last Jedi backlash are caused by Russian trolls or bots. And I'm sitting here reading the news thinking, wait, that's not right.
An academic paper finds that half of the criticism aimed at director Rian Johnson was politically motivated.
Okay, so it's an academic paper and half of the criticism aimed at Rian Johnson was politically motivated. Wait, half of the criticism aimed at Rian Johnson? Not half of the criticism towards The Last Jedi? I have a bad feeling about this.
Did Star Wars The Last Jedi destroy the franchise and permanently rupture the fandom as its critics melodramatically have accused it of doing? According to a new academic paper by researcher Morton Bay, the answer is clearly no.
Well, Morton Bay, that sounds incredibly delusional.
Bay suggests that reputation may not be earned, and instead finds evidence of deliberate, organized political influence measures disguised as fan arguments. As he writes in the paper's abstract, the likely objective of these measures is increasing media coverage of the fandom conflict, thereby adding to and further propagating a narrative of widespread discord and dysfunction in American society. Persuading voters of this narrative remains a strategic goal for the U.S. alt-right movement as well as the Russian Federation.
Hey. You're lost. You're lost, writer. I haven't read your paper. Anyway, the paper's abstract mostly discusses political discourses in social media. We can both agree that it's messy and incredibly polarizing. The writer says that the Russian meddling can not only appear in the 2016 presidential election, but it can also be used for pop culture. It's basically a conspiracy theory. Just listen to this.
The paper concludes that while it is only a minority of Twitter accounts that tweet negatively about The Last Jedi, organized attempts at politicizing the pop culture discourse on social media for strategic purposes are significant enough that users should be made aware of these measures so they can act accordingly.
Writer, we usually call these organized attempts as merely airing your opinions on the film, and since a lot of people think that the film was bad, the opinions that they air tend to lean to the negative side. It's not a Russian troll conspiracy, you delusional halfwit. The writer then talks about the times where the media talks about the toxic Star Wars fandoms, and finally someone has a definition of these toxic fandoms. Fans who hate The Last Jedi and have gone so far as trying to crowdfund a remake of the film, start Change.org petitions to strike the film from the Star Wars canon, and create videos, website, and social media content that criticize the film and call for the firing of its creators. That definition is unbelievably broad. Some of the actions are definitely toxic, like asking for the creators to be fired, but crowdfunding a remake of the film? That's not toxic, it's just stupid. Videos, websites, and social media content that criticize the film. Writer, are you sure you wrote that correctly? Criticize the film. Last time I checked, criticisms of the film are not toxic. Actually, who am I kidding? We're dealing with progressives here. Any criticism that we give to them are toxic.
Supporters of The Last Jedi have called these detractors out as being predominantly white males with misogynistic views that did not care for the film's attempts at improving representation of women and ethnics or sexual minorities in the Star Wars franchise.
I love that you describe the people who have these opinions as supporters of The Last Jedi. Do you think that's a fair representation of the people who are supportive of The Last Jedi? I mean, if that's how you're gonna represent all the supporters, I'm gonna take that at face value. All the supporters of The Last Jedi are accusing Last Jedi haters of being white males who hate women and minorities. This is how you represent your side of the argument. You really need to be careful in what you wrote next time.
It appears that some fans with right-leaning political views expected the franchise to be politically neutral as they went to see the first Star Wars film of the Trump presidency, The Last Jedi. They saw its arguments for equality of gender, race, and class as a new leftist takeover of Star Wars, even though Star Wars has always been politically left-leaning.
Writer, there's a difference between left and far left. The original Star Wars is a theme of rebelling against an authoritarian fascist. The newer Star Wars has all of that, plus rich people are evil, guys. Robots should rebel against their masters. We need robot equality here. The funny thing about this paper is that the divide between the fans are so outrageous, it is possible to find the people who are leaning to the right who didn't like the film because of the women and minorities. I admit that these people exist, but should they be the main attention? Should they be the one that is used to represent the fans who have better legitimate criticisms? In fact, I want to ask you all a question. Have the media ever represent Last Jedi criticisms as something constructive instead of toxic or destructive? It's pretty damn freaking rare. I even dare to say almost never. I have seen so many people's criticisms towards The Last Jedi, and there are a lot of them who makes great points, but they don't get media attention. That should tell you the side that the media takes. That should give you a perfect illustration of the culture war that is happening in this day and age. It's ridiculous, unfair. It's why people watch girls who play badminton, a blood cell's daily life inside your body, a psychic girl that got adopted by a Yakuza who can destroy the world, an emotionless soldier who got cyborg arms writing love letters, a blossoming romance between the thief and the detective. Wait, that's not.
It is important to stress, of course, that there are also a substantial number of fans who simply think The Last Jedi is a bad film and who use social media to express their disappointment. Regardless of motive, almost all negative fans express the belief that they are in the majority and that most Star Wars fans dislike The Last Jedi.
Because they are the majority? Or at least they occupy a very significant number in a fan base? Are you telling me that they're not? I think we should just go straight to the methodology. I want to make sure that at least the data being gathered here are legit.
To ensure that the dataset was not restricted by adherence to certain hashtags or so large that it would exceed my computational resources to analyze it, I chose to study tweets addressing The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson directly.
No. I'm just one paragraph in. Can this be any worse?
No mass collection of tweets have been performed, since only tweets engaging with Rian Johnson have been collected. Only information stated publicly on the studied Twitter accounts have been collected.
Hey. Wow. I'm not even surprised anymore. This is something that a lazy college student would do. This does not prove anything. Tweets directed towards Rian Johnson are not representative of the opinions of the Star Wars fans. You picked a sample that is not going to accurately represent the population. You published this paper and a bunch of news outlets talk about this as if this is legit. This is fake news. By definition, the only reason why the news outlets are doing this is to push an agenda. And ladies and gentlemen, that's not even the worst part.
For the account analyses, I divided the negatively tweeting accounts into 3 categories, coding them as political agenda, troll or sock puppets or bots, and real fantagonists.
That's right, if you're a troll, someone with a political agenda, or a fan who is simply disappointed with Star Wars, you're all lumped in with the bot as well. The writer then proceeds to explain his findings. All of this is rendered irrelevant because it's based on tweets directed at Rian Johnson and not, say, videos on YouTube or Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes user scores? Do I even have to go with the study? The sampling method is already freaking wrong that I think I don't have to go on any further. In fact, the writer concludes this by not being certain if it's actually representative.
Assuming that the collected dataset of Twitter interactions with The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson is at least to an extent representative of Star Wars fandom on Twitter.
No. You can't just do that. Don't you think that you need to make sure that the samples that you grabbed are representative before you make actual claims? Don't you think that what you're doing could mislead people? Or is that your intention, you freaking hack? So what does this incredibly contrived sample tells us about Star Wars fans on Twitter? Well, the data doesn't support claims that a majority of fans are so dissatisfied with The Last Jedi that they wish to boycott further Star Wars release under Disney ownership. Yeah, about that. A majority of the fans with clear gender identifications mostly identify as male, and 1/3 of the negative fans express misogynist, anti-progressive, anti-social justice, or conservative views. Writer, if you can't see how and why people are anti-progressive and or anti-social justice and or conservative in this day and age, I think you have problems.
When some detractors of The Last Jedi correctly claim that it is an injustice to place these labels on all negative fans, these detractors also have to contend with the fact that the labels actually fit a large portion of their faction.
In other words, you might not be a misogynist, anti-progressive, anti-social justice conservative, but a lot of people who criticize the film are. Writer, I think you should double check to see if your samples aren't being mistaken for InfoWars subscribers.
A number of fans feel like Star Wars has been politicized by Lucasfilm and Disney, but since the political and ethical positions presented in the new films are consistent with older films, it is more likely that the polarization of the Trump era has politicized the fans.
Wow. Amazing. This is how the writer framed this argument. Star Wars has political elements in the past, therefore we are completely justified to use these films as a political propaganda to push progressive ideologies. It's not Trump, writer. People have issues with progressive ideologies and how they're terribly implemented and so in your face with the recent Star Wars films. If you cannot understand that, I think you are lost.
However, the assertions made in this article must be considered within the limited scope of the dataset, which may or may not limit generalizability of the findings.
Yeah, that worked out really well, didn't it?
Yet, even considering the limitation of the dataset, there are enough indications that pop culture debates on social media are being politicized, sometimes for strategic purposes that have nothing to do with the subject under debate.
Wow. Oh my god, wow. I am astonished. That is the best thing that I have ever read in my entire life. Congratulations, writer. You have accurately described yourself. You have accurately described the mainstream media. You have accurately described the progressives and the extreme left who are politicizing this film into ridiculous degrees. You are correct. There are indeed enough indications that pop culture debates on social media are being politicized. And yes, they are being used for strategic purposes that have nothing to do with the subject under debate. Do you know the kinds of people who did this? You did this. All of this is because of you. Oh my god. I can't even.
As the debate of misinformation, political communication, and regulation of social media continues, researchers studying these matters may find it beneficial to turn their attention into pop culture and how political messaging is propagated in its fandoms.
I couldn't agree more, writer. I couldn't agree more. Time and time again, we've seen many individuals who are leaning on the very extreme side of the political spectrum attempting to politicize famous pop culture media to push their agendas down our throat. Since I love my pop culture media, I will always be there to report it because this is unacceptable. People need to know why this is unacceptable and they should start pushing back. That, or we can just let Western entertainment die so that we can watch some dork bang a giant alien monster.